the incredible battle that is going on in our government. That certainly was on display as Kash Patel testified in front of the Senate yesterday. And man, oh man, talking of no love lost, or whatever expression you want to fill in here, it was pretty ugly. Distinguished Professor, Political Science Department, and Director of the Center for Civic Engagement at Oakland University, Professor David Dulio is here. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about freedom of speech and how sometimes people who are personally involved, or seemingly so, don't always make the right decision. And I'm referring in a sense to, frankly, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, announcing that she would be going after or use law enforcement against people who don't respond to the Charlie Kirk assassination in the way that she deems to be the correct way. And heck, that's even against what is the little that I know about Charlie Kirk, but everything I've seen and watching, trying to catch up. He was all for freedom of speech. Am I wrong about that, David?
Good afternoon, Paul W. Thanks for having me back. You are not incorrect. You're exactly right. The First Amendment exists to protect speech that we don't like, not the speech that we do like. And I think the Attorney General is finding out with the pushback that she's gotten over her remarks on so-called hate speech that those folks that are on her side of many policy issues disagree with her vehemently on this, and frankly, so would the Supreme Court. So, that's another kettle of fish.
I'm thinking it's. Maybe I'm trying to make excuses for her, but it's more difficult when you're personally involved, and she apparently personally knew this guy apparently quite well. Everybody in the White House, in the administration, seemingly, and everyone on Fox News, I might add, seemingly knew Charlie Kirk, and so it is a little bit more difficult when you have a personal relationship. But first and foremost, she's the Attorney General of the United States of America, and there is no place for her office or anyone to do the very things, actually, that they have been criticizing the last president for doing. With various people in the FBI and the DOJ and any number of other ways. They're at the same time talking about the things Biden did that were wrong, and then they're talking about doing some things that are very wrong. Look, I don't have to like people who are talking the way some of them are. I won't like them. I won't have anything to do with them. If I owned a company, I would decide who I wanted working with me and who I did not. And it might be based on stupid things like that they say. But that's a world away from having a government agency like the Department of Justice or anyone else, the Attorney General, the FBI, or anyone else getting involved.
Well, and I think that's such a good point. The idea of any government entity defining the quote unquote the line of where speech is appropriate and is not is terrifying to many people. And I think we can look across the Atlantic Ocean to places like Scotland and how new laws there criminalize quote unquote offensive speech, and people get arrested every day in that country for things like online posts that somebody in some government agency deems as inappropriate, and that I think is a scary thought here in America.
It is indeed, and we can't have it both ways, I guess, is what I'm trying to work out here.
I totally, and I think we ask for consistency from our leaders.
That's right? That's even a better way of putting it.
Because I think you're exactly right that those on the right who have clearly and understandably been affected by Charlie Kirk's assassination, right? They are reacting in an emotional and heartfelt way, right? They don't like to see the words that are being used to describe somebody that, as you mentioned, the folks in the White House had a relationship with or friends with him. They don't like that. But we as rational people need to be able to say, okay, you need to separate your personal feelings from what you're saying as a representative of the federal government.
Distinguished Professor, Political Science Department, Director of the Center for Civic Engagement at Oakland University, Professor David Dullio. I remember what the Wall Street Journal lawsuit was about, the drawing of the woman and the president saying he never entered anything into a 50th birthday celebration book for what's his name, the slime bag. But what's the $15 billion defamation suit against the New York Times and Penguin Random House about?
It could be any number of things, Paul W., right? I mean, the president and his personal legal team are very good at making big splashes about accusations that they are making against folks that he disagrees with or he thinks he has been wronged by. I think that the number, the dollar figure of damages is certainly interesting and and it's an attention getter. We'll have to see how this one winds through the court system.
I had not, when they do things like this, they draw more attention to things that most of us never knew. Most of us had no idea, and I didn't until I started reading all this stuff, getting ready for you, David, to come on, that there is even a book that's been written. This is part of what I guess he was upset about. A book that's been written called Lucky Loser, How Donald Trump Squandered His Father's Fortune and Created the Illusion of Success. I never even knew the book existed.
There you go. Everybody's out to make a buck, and somebody, and an author thinks that he or she has got a path to do that.
What a world we live in. And now Jerry from Ben & Jerry's has quit the company because he feels they have been muzzled by their British owner. So don't blame us for that one.
No, right? Again, it's somebody deciding where language has gone too far.
And frankly, if you own a company, you have a right to do that to a certain extent.
That's correct. And I think people here confuse that all the time, right? The First Amendment is protection from government interference. Private entities, and we see this in debates about what can be posted on X or Facebook or wherever, right? That they are allowed to, decide what their employees can or cannot do.
Professor, it is always a refreshing pleasure. Thank you for your expertise.
Thank you, Paul W.
Professor David Dullio, Distinguished Professor, Political Science Department, Director of the Center for Civic Engagement at Oakland University. It's Focus with Paul W. Smith on WJR at 1230.